Tell you, it's
Okay, we're going to get started. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Appreciate the attendance. In the December budget meeting, after a series of meetings, the Budget Committee agreed to move forward with public input on 6 different budget reduction scenarios. Tonight is the first of the public hearings that is going to be considering those scenarios. Staff has developed a handout that includes those proposed reductions, and they should be available for you tonight. Looks something like this. We have until 7 o'clock tonight. We have to end sharply at 7. This, again, will be continued on the 28th. We have already more than 40 people signed up, so we're going to limit the speaking time for each person to 2 minutes. Anybody that does not get the opportunity to speak tonight, we're going to save your sign-up slips in the order that you signed up tonight, and we'll have those that don't get to speak available for next week's continued public hearing. If you, let's see, in order to facilitate the process, I'm going to call 2 names at once, the person that's ready to come up and speak and then the person that will be next. So please queue up behind the podium to be ready so we can go as quickly as possible with that transition time. If someone before you has said what you're prepared to say, I encourage you to simply say that you agree with them and add anything specific or individual that you'd like to say. You don't have to use your entire 2 minutes. This will allow time for more folks to speak. And finally, please limit your remarks to addressing the 6 proposed budget reduction scenarios. That's what we're seeking feedback on tonight. When you come to the podium, please say your name and the ward if you know it. And then also, there's a timer on the podium with 3 colored lights, green, yellow, and red. When you have 30 seconds left of your speaking time, you'll hear 1 beep and the yellow light will blink, and when your time is up, the red light will start blinking and more beeping. So please end at that time. So with that, I'm going to just start through the stack. The first person up to speak is Sarah Finley, and then after her will be Bill Askbren.
Bryn.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Finley, and I am 16 years old. I have been a patron at the Bethel Branch Library for 13 years. Hand in hand with one or both of my parents, I would dawdle in as a toddler, plop down in front of the picture books, then sit in wonder as my parents read to me. The library provided a plethora of material for my parents to use to teach me how to read. Nearly every weekend, my family would take the short walk to the library and spend an hour or 2 reading together. The close proximity of the library to our house made this a simple task. When I was 5, I was not yet tall enough to see over the checkout counter, but this did not deter me from asking if I could have my own library card. I was ecstatic to have one of my very own, something I would lose countless times until I was 13 and got my own wallet, but regardless, it meant I had the freedom to check out as much as I wanted, as opposed to the school's library limit of 2 items. This freedom proved mildly dangerous, and it did not take long before a rule was established that I could only check out as many items as I could carry by myself. Throughout the years of elementary and middle school, I resorted to the library's nonfiction section to help me complete school projects. Whether the project was concerned with frogs, solar power, or red blood cells, this library was my main resource. Now a volunteer at the library, I realize that my story is not unique. Every shift, I see numbers of small children being brought in by their parents to learn how to read. The librarians are just as friendly as they were 13 years ago, and children like me still check out dozens of picture books along with the occasional puppet or 2. Do not let this cycle end. To quote Michelle Obama, libraries allow children to ask questions about the world and find the answers. And the wonderful thing is that once a child learns how to use a library, the doors to learning are always open. Do not close these doors. Keep our libraries open. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Bill Askbren. I'm going to ask that we don't applause. It just wastes time. We have a policy here that we don't applause. Please don't wave the banners. We try not to intimidate anybody, and the applause can actually intimidate others that may have a different view. So if you could please refrain from that, that'd be great. Thank you. And then after Bill is Mike Barnaby.
Hi, my name's Bill Aspergren. No one wants to see the service cuts presented in the 6 options, yet we all realize the budget must be balanced. What is happening is one
Could you
group is being...
speak into the mic, sir, please? Excuse me.
All right.
Thanks.
What is
everybody
happening...
to hear you.
What?
We want everybody to hear you.
Okay. What is happening is one group is being pitted against the other to save the services that are important to them. The most vocal will get their way and the others will lose. This is not the way to make a decision. So what's the solution? I believe it's premature to propose the service cuts outlined in the 6 options until there is a visible effort to optimize the city's organization. The first step should be to bring in an outside independent performance auditor. This consultant should look at some of the following areas. Is the staffing correct? Are the salaries appropriate and competitive? Are there areas to save by outsourcing jobs? Are the system development charges appropriate? Is the city working on the right projects? How can the city avoid missing project deadlines that create cost overruns? Is the financial investigative team's report a fair evaluation of alternatives? And are there other approaches? Councilor Brown made a statement in the State of the City program about the budget process. He said, and I quote, "Through this process, many topics were examined, but a general reluctance to initiate any fundamental structural changes in how the city's revenue stream is allocated will probably result in drastic service cuts in the fiscal year budget." This statement leads me to believe that the city is unwilling to take a critical look at their organization and propose changes to work more efficiently while maintaining a high level of service. I saw no evidence of this in the FIT report, that this was considered. Since I'm running out of time, I'd like to have this put in the record. Okay, I have some other things in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next is Mike Barnaby, and then Lauren Jorgensen.
Good evening. You guys can hear me? Good evening, councilors, budget committee members, city manager Reese, Mayor Piercy. My name is Mike Barnaby. I'm a resident of the city of Eugene, as well as a fire captain with the City of Eugene Fire Department. I'm also the president of the Lane Professional Firefighters Association, IAFF Local 851. Excuse me. I come before you to urge you to locate the funding to keep the fire departments and firefighter and paramedics at their current staffing level. Since 1981, the demand for services and calls from the citizens of Eugene have increased 700%. The population of the city has increased approximately 60%, and the fire department now responds into the incorporated areas of Santa Clara. To compare that increase in call volume, in 1981, the fire department responded to approximately 3,000 calls for service. In 2012, the fire department responded to approximately 21,000 calls of service, with no real increase in staffing or additional resources. We're currently working at a staffing level adequate 30 years ago. Removing firefighter paramedics from the geographical center of the city of Eugene will shift the call volume and needs of the community to the other engine companies in the emergency system. Last year, Engine 2 responded to more than 2,700 calls for service, with a large percentage of those calls to our most vulnerable citizens. Those 2,700 calls would have to be absorbed by the other paramedic engine companies in the department. The entire EMS system is predicated on paramedics and fire engines arriving first and initiating emergency care for patients. The loss of Engine 2 and its firefighter paramedics will delay this essential first arriving medical care and risk the safety of the citizens. The most recent citywide survey by Strategy Research Institute identified 96% support for maintaining fire and EMS services in the community. I urge you to listen to the citizens who are unable to have the luxury of attending a budget committee meeting. During these difficult deliberations, I encourage you to make your decision based on the essential role of government and what the community at large has deemed as our top priorities. The men and women of the fire service have a proud history of serving our community. We are there when you ask for us and need us, regardless of the time of day or night. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren Jorgensen, and then next after her is Margaret Hanson.
My name is Lauren Jorgensen, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak in behalf of keeping the Bethel Branch Library open. This is my son Josh, and he has autism. The Bethel Library is important to us because we can't go to the downtown library due to my son's sensory issues and need for routine. He loves the library and likes to look at each and every book before making his selection, so this is really problematic in the big library downtown. It's easy for me to go to the Bethel branch because even if my son goes into a sensory meltdown, I can get him outside in 10 seconds, and every second counts in a public meltdown. The patrons of the Bethel branch have been very kind to my 3 small children, 2 of which get early intervention services when they're not as quiet as they should be in the library. However, the experiences I and other parents of special needs kids have had at the downtown library aren't always positive. I visit the Bethel Library myself for books weekly, but I'm not comfortable visiting the downtown library by myself at night, which would be my only option if the Bethel branch closes. I feel strongly that my 3 sons need to be exposed to books and develop a love of reading to set them up for a better educational experience in future. The Bethel branch is our only option to do so successfully at this time due to my son's disability. I read to my young boys multiple times every single day, and I'm doing what I can to help them develop literacy. But I truly need the Bethel Branch Library to get them the new and exciting books that I can't afford to buy on my own. I acknowledge the difficult job that the Budget Committee has, and I hope that you will listen to all of us that have gathered here to find a way to keep these important libraries open in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Margaret Hanson, then Avery Cottle.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Margaret Hanson, and I'm a parent of 4 children in the Bethel School District, which is Ward 6. I'm not here alone. If you are here in support of the branch libraries, could you please stand up?
There's a couple of them.
And please continue standing throughout my comments because we stand together on this issue. We are here because we care deeply about the branch libraries. I pick up books for my kids at the branch library 2 to 3 times a week. This is how I keep my kids excited about reading. It's how I keep them from too much screen time. It's a 40-minute round trip to downtown, and I have a car. But I worry for the senior citizens, the low-income families, and for the youth that don't have access to the library at all if it closes in Bethel. And in Sheldon. I was speaking with a Bethel principal about a recent visit she had to the Bethel Branch Library. She noticed a student sitting in the corner and told me I was glad the student was there. This student's home is pretty rough, and I'm glad she has a safe place to be. In many ways, these libraries are refuges for people in our communities. I've heard that the Budget Committee feels there's little interest in keeping the branch libraries open due to a lack of outcry over the proposed closures. In fact, I didn't know about the closures until the article in the paper about a month ago. Since then, I've shared my feelings with friends and neighbors, and as you can see, we all care deeply about the branch libraries. I'm excited to support library revenue measures on future ballots, and I think that other Bethel and Sheldon voters will too if they feel like library services are being extended to them. And I worry that if the library branch is closed, that there won't be a way for them to reopen. Thank you.
Thank you. Avery Cottle and then Ann Burgess.
Good evening. My name is Avery Cottle, and I'm here to support the Bethel branch. I moved to Eugene when I was 3 years old, and one of my first memories is going to the Bethel Branch Library and getting my first library card with my dad. I spelled all my names in caps, and I practiced the entire week before so I could make it fit on the back of the card on the little white space. I am now a junior while I'm at high school, and I have gone to Bethel schools all of my life. The libraries at my school could never supply me with the new books I wanted and often limited my checkout to only 2 items, as my friend Sarah mentioned. The Bethel branch was my saving grace and allowed me to check out stacks of books. The love for my reading and my support for the Bethel Library branch is why I'm here today. The value of the education I have gained from the books of my small library branch have influenced me as a person and have challenged me to take advanced courses in school like IB. A majority of our students do not have the capacity to travel to the downtown library without a parent or car to drive us to and from. We are dependent on our library to read. Furthermore, the library is an option for kids in our community who lack the computers at home. Willamette has computers, however, they are only available till 3:10 every day. I was stunned when I heard a few weeks ago that the library might be closed. The library is not only a part of our community, but it benefits our students from an early age. Without this Bethel branch, I fear that many of our students would lose the curiosity to read. Without access to check out books and use the computers, they are limited to the school libraries that lack sufficient funding. I know you have a hard decision tonight, but please make the right decision for our Bethel students and save our library. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ann Burgess, and then Sabine DeToit.
Good evening. I'm Ann Burgess, a 29-year resident of Eugene, a 28-year teacher in Bethel School District, and a longtime member of Stand for Children. I'm here representing numerous groups. I want to let you know that Stand for Children is in support of keeping the branch libraries open. I'm not here to give you any answers. I'm here to make your job a little tougher, raise some questions, and limit some options. As a teacher, as a community member, I know, and I know you know, the value of learning. You know the importance of having an educated group of constituents to foster a democracy, to make decisions. And recently, I'm sure you have valued reading about our schools' report cards, knowing how we do in the schools, knowing how our students and how our children fare in our community. We are charged with raising a literate community. Literacy is not an option. That's why closing the libraries, the branch libraries, is also not an option. We need to make books, literacy, librarians, educated librarians, librarians with master's degrees who can help children who struggle choose the right book, find their way. And also, we talk about equity in our community. I know as a teacher, I want to have my students have access to technology. Many of my students do not have internet at home. 15% of 4J students do not have internet at home. Probably that number is higher in Bethel. Make it accessible. Keep the libraries open. I think it's decided. Thank you.
Thank you. Sabine DeToit, and then Paul Jorgensen.
My name is Sabine Dutois. I'm from Ward 6. I am here to represent seniors. The first speaker said she was 16. I am 74. And I have been reading since I was 3, and I remember getting my first library card. I live in a mobile home park, and there are about between 250 and 300 people there. I see one other member of our park here tonight because mobility is our biggest issue. Driving in the fog and at night is just not an option for those people to come down here and even express their opinions. Fortunately, my husband's younger than I, and he drove me down here. And again, the issue was brought up about getting to the downtown library. It is just very difficult for us, whether it's coming by bus or driving around in this area, even in the daylight. And without the Bethel branch, we would definitely not have service. Many seniors would simply not ever use the library again. Myself included, not ever use it, but I've certainly curtailed my use since the hours have been curtailed. To me, the single loss would be the inability to pick up holes and take them back. That is the major use. I know that in the future, someday, libraries will be nothing but screens and tablets. But right now, the joy of getting a brand new book off the shelf and discovering a new author, or your old author is still alive and hasn't died, it's about our quality of life. It's not something monetary. Without that branch, I would not want to live in a town that doesn't have a library access. I've always felt that way, and I'm an ex-librarian, so I my time's been out. I sent suggestions to Mayor Piercy.
Thank you. Paul Jorgensen, then Val Hoyle.
Good evening. My name is Paul Jorgensen, Ward 6. I'm a Bethel School Board member, serving 27 years. I'm a former teacher, building administrator in District 4J, 1962 graduate of Willamette High School, and a Bethel resident since 1947. Thank you for your efforts in the development of a budget, a balanced budget for the City of Eugene in these lean times. Bethel School District has also been forced to do this many different years. We understand the challenge that's ahead of you. Bethel is home to one of the most diverse communities in Eugene, including some of Eugene's lowest income neighborhoods. Bethel is also home to a very supportive constituency that places a high value on public services. Just last year, Bethel voters approved a school bond measure to replace older schools, update curriculum, install safety equipment, and replace aging technology. The bond measure passed 73% yes, almost unheard of in the state of Oregon. This is a testament to our people in Bethel and their collective support of what is good for the common purpose. Bethel community has three primary ways of interacting with the City of Eugene: the Bethel Library, the Echo Hollow Pool, and Peterson Barn. The city has done well to develop these services in our community, but sometimes people still feel disenfranchised and forgotten. So it's our hope that the Budget Committee can come up with a solution to keep the Bethel Branch Library open. So on behalf of the Bethel School District, the Board of Directors, and our teachers and our parents and community, thank you very much for coming up with a positive solution to this endeavor. Thank you for your time and service.
Thank you. Val Hoyle, and then Kirsten Lee.
Hi, Val Hoyle, State Representative. I represent West Eugene and Junction City. I'm the Majority Leader of the House, and I'm here today to say I appreciate very much how difficult your job is, but I'm here to speak for my community. I grew up in a neighborhood in an area much like Bethel, and I spent a lot of time in our branch library. And in that library, I read about people who did things that most people in my neighborhood didn't do. Things like graduate from college, travel around the world, become leaders, make change in their community. And those were not things that I would have learned in our home, which we didn't have a lot of books, and I had two working parents. So I understand why this is important. I also have 34 mobile home parks in my district, predominantly low income. And these are people, seniors, mostly single women, mostly people on fixed income who utilize the library, who utilize the internet services if they're looking for jobs. The fact is, this is an essential service. Now, I know that you have a difficult choice. I had a difficult choice to make in the last session, and I made some choices to put $2.5 million back into your budget, and it wasn't an easy vote. And what I'm asking you is, when I look at the 6 proposals and I look at the group of people that are here, I just have to say that we disproportionately in Bethel and West Eugene are underrepresented when I look at the people that are here. And the fact is, I think that these budget proposals reflect that. I know you've done the best job you can, but I would say go back and look at some other things. For instance, the human service budget. Can you line item look at some of that to see if there are administrative services that we can take out and not touch fire service, police investigation, and our branch libraries, things that really, really matter to the communities in West and North Eugene. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Kirsten Lee is up, and then Aho, or Jao Aho is
Jan.
Excuse me, it's a little hard to read. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kirsten Lee, and I'm the Services Director for Runaway and Homeless Youth Services for Looking Glass. Tonight I'm speaking on behalf of not only Looking Glass and the Human Service Network, but also asking for you to minimize reduction of funding to the Human Service discretionary funding. A little background. Since 2011, Runaway and Homeless Youth Services at Looking Glass has endured a reduction of over 30%. Our programs improve the safety of our clients as well as the citizens in our community, but most of all, our services save money. If more kids are left out of services, they will burden hospitals, treatment facilities, law enforcement, and justice system services. I want to talk to you about the positives that we see and we do every day in the work that my staff does at Looking Glass and that human services programs happen all across the county. So I'm going to talk to you about Hannah. 6 months ago, Hannah was 18, sleeping on a porch at an abandoned house that was foreclosed. She had become homeless after leaving her father's house when she decided that the physical abuse due to his alcoholism was too much. During the whole time that she was homeless and before that, she had held a job. She was a server at a restaurant, but her wages there weren't enough for her to get into an apartment on her own. And so one day she ran into street outreach component of Looking Glass downtown. She got her basic needs met on the spot, was able to ask questions, and the next day she came in to New Roads, met with a case manager. Within 3 weeks she was in her own apartment. And she's still meeting with case managers, but she's being stable. That's just one snapshot of the help that we provide clients throughout Lane County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Jan Aho, and then Jenny Jonick.
Thank you. I'm speaking here in support of minimizing reductions to the Human Services discretionary funding. The specific home visiting program funded by HSC allows Burrowbuck Preschool to support parents with different learning styles to create a safe and happy home for their child so that children reach their full potential without having the need for costly special education programs and reduce the risk of costly out-of-home placement. The preschool has adopted evidence-based approach and has been proven to increase positive discipline techniques and reduce challenging behaviors. It is widely used in Bethel, Forget, and Springfield schools, which are districts that our children transition into. The preschool has 4 community agreements. We are safe, we work together, we are respectful, and we have fun. The HSC funding allows us to bring community agreements into the home setting. Therefore, the children are reinforced for their positive behavior in the home in the same way that they are at school. The funding covers the cost of a home visitor as well as travel and teaching materials. The home visitor helps families support their community agreements at school and to translate them into their life. As a result of this program, we've seen an increase of the parents' ability to manage challenging behavior, maintain a safe and stable home, maintain parental rights, to supervise their children safely, making bedtime fun, and by having a bedtime routine, as well as accessing the supports they need in the community. As one of the parents said, I get strategies that work at home and make life easier. Thank you.
Thank you. Jenny Jonick, and then Chaz Dutois.
Hello, my name is Jenny Jonak, and I'm the president of the Friends of Eugene Public Library. I could start here by telling you about some of the numbers of people that go through, hundreds to each one of the 2 branches of the library. But there are some things in our community that are more important and cannot be measured just in terms of statistics. Our libraries are one of those things. The branches are an integral part of our library. They provide access to books, to computers, to a safe haven for children after school, and to educational opportunities for everyone in the community, regardless of income, regardless of transportation access. Those are extremely important. You've heard some stories tonight about how many different people's lives have been changed by access to these branches. I know you have a difficult decision ahead of you, but keeping these branches open so that they can serve the parts of our community that have as much or more need for access to these resources in Eugene, that's the right thing to do. I urge you to find a way to keep these branches open. Thank you.
Thank you. Chaz Dutois, and then Susan Ban.
My name is Chaz Dutois. I'm Ward 6. I want to first thank you, public servants, for all the work you do. I have a profound respect for each of you and what you give our community. And I want to say that I was really saddened that the ballot measure last year didn't pass. I voted for it. I worked, in my own way to inform people about what the needs of the city are. And I want to just implore you, I was really also saddened to see that replacement revenue isn't any part of the options that are presented. And I think a better crafted measure that maybe takes, learning a little bit from what happened from that and putting a more progressive spin on the measure might do better. I just want to implore you to look at replacement revenue to keep the branch libraries open. When you close them, they're not going to open again. And we can't just keep on reducing government services and with the increase that staff costs. So if we're going to just go down that road and continue to reduce and reduce, we're going to have a lesser city, and it's just saddened to me. So I want to just really have you look at the political will to increase revenues, to have that be part of the options. Thanks.
Thank you. Susan Bann, and then Bonnie McCornack.
Thank you all. I know it's a tough conversation to be having again and again, and so grateful that you are willing to come and be part of the public deliberation and discernment on these issues. I'm Susan Bann. I'm from Ward 5, and I'm here to support continued funding for HSC. And I want to say that I deeply believe that this funding is about the health and safety of our community and the health and safety of individuals. And in that vein, I actually brought a story of one of the women that we serve who became pregnant with a child, and once she gave birth, realized that she had something wrong with her. She had a mental illness. And Karen says about her struggle with postpartum depression, psychosis, and PTSD, the thoughts you have, you don't even recognize them. She had always been prone to depression, and with a family history of mental illness, she visited a psychiatrist, but the problem only worsened. Eventually, it did become psychosis and created problems with her living situation. She became homeless and eventually ended up in the hospital. It was there that services funded by the HSC kicked in, because as she left the hospital, she was able to get crisis respite support, and following some of that support, able to move into a supported housing situation where she was getting wraparound case management support. It was critical for her. The good news in Karen's story is that she's gaining control over her life. She's in contact with her caseworker. She's going to school to get a CNA. She's reunited with her child. She's living in stable housing and has been for the past year. So all of that is good news. She's one of 1,700 people we served last year. She's one of the 2,000 that were counted as homeless last year. She's one of the 17% in our community who are living in poverty. So these HSC funding sources are really about safety and well-being and the health of our community. Thanks.
Thank you. Bonnie McCornack, and then Susan, Tara Colian.
Good evening. I'm Bonnie McCornack. Cutting services is entirely unnecessary. The alleged budget gap is a figment created by moving numbers around. The financial investigative team was stacked with well-connected members and a few actual citizens who were not prepared or supported to conduct any actual investigating. The report is not objective. There was no independent research or investigation. All the information was provided by the city. The biggest issue with the options provided is that options 1 through 5 all include a stealth fee that can be adopted by City Council ordinance, and then rate increases can be continuously administered under the radar by the manager. Redefining the rate-supported stormwater program to include parks maintenance means eWeb ratepayers will be charged a new fee folded into their stormwater charge for a service historically funded out of the general fund, thus freeing up a lot of money in the general fund while increasing taxpayers' overall burden. Property tax-funded parks maintenance is a service of Parks and Rec with no real nexus to stormwater. This is an end run around the failed city service fee as well as state constitutional property tax limitations. So even if you just have to believe the city's claims about the gap, the money exists to pay for those services, and I don't have time to go into all the ways, but the first way is fund them with the existing $8 million in the City Hall Reserve Fund and the projected $12 million that you plan to skim out of the general fund in the future for the ceremonial City Hall. Right now, we don't even need a new City Hall. The city has legally obligated the general fund to lease $1.4 million in 2014 for office space downtown, plus they're very economically and efficiently using excess county space for meetings and offices.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Tarakolian, followed by David Monk.
Good evening. I'm Susan Tavakolian, co-president of the League of Women Voters of Lane County. Thank you for the opportunity to address the Budget Committee about the anticipated shortfall for fiscal year 2015. The 6 options put forward are focused primarily on spending reductions, and we encourage the Budget Committee to continue to investigate new revenues and policy changes and to seek public input on those aspects of the budget as well. The League does not support across-the-board cuts to city services as proposed in option number 6 because we believe it is important to prioritize services based on community needs and values. We commend the Budget Committee for removing from the cost-cutting proposals such items as closing the Sheldon Pool and reducing hours or days at the downtown library. We oppose reducing city contributions to intergovernmental arrangements such as the Lane Council of Governments and the Metro Partnership. But in a time of scarce resources, it is essential for local governments to coordinate efforts to benefit the entire region. And the city needs to be part of such cooperative efforts. We are pleased that options 1 through 5 retain all or most of the city's contribution to the Human Services Commission Discretionary Fund. It is critical that local nonprofit agencies have the ability to provide services to disadvantaged residents whose needs continue or grow as overall resources decline. We are dismayed by proposals to limit resident access to the branch libraries by closing them and agree with previous testimony to keep them open. On the resource side, we urge the support of stormwater fees for park maintenance that are directly related to stormwater management. We support a 5% overall increase in recreation fees for targeted special activities, if accompanied by scholarship aid for low-income participants. Again, thank you for your efforts to analyze and balance the competing needs for budget resources, and we look forward to the continuing conversation.
Thank you. David Monk, followed by Ellen Bridges.
Thank you all for everything you're doing for the city, all the work that you're putting into this. I'd like to share a perspective that I didn't hear at all expressed at the budget meetings that I attended, and that is that, and this is not something that I've devised myself, this is something that nationally syndicated pundits express. It's something I've read from Nobel Prize-winning economists, and this is the fact that the economy is fundamentally changing, where we're living in a time with an aging population. We have unfunded liabilities on the national level, state and local level. It's really imperative that you all look at this, in my estimation, that you look at this budget process in the manner that you need to make fundamental changes. You've heard from a lot of folks about the branch libraries. They're very important to them. You really need to look at some of the big ticket items in your budget. I think this is the only way you're going to solve this. You all are going to be here. The council is going to be back facing this same issue again and again and again to the extent of their careers here. I can rest assured of that. So when I look at the expenditures, it's pretty obvious that public safety takes the largest percentage of the city's budget. The Eugene Police Department's budget is $45 million. That's $10.7 million more than the city of Salem. Equal population. The police department is in negotiations with their members at present. This is your opportunity to do what you can to work with Chief Kearns to reduce the police's budget and try to take fundamental changes to your budgets. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could just remind speakers to please state their name when they start, that would be helpful too. So Ellen Bridges, followed by Ann Burgess.
Hello. Hello, my name is Ellen Bridges, and I'm a volunteer here in Eugene, Oregon. I moved down to Eugene in 1986 as a new bride. My husband used to be a timber faller, and at that time I was a bank teller. So we've gone all over all the states in following timber at one time, and now he's into helicopters. And so I volunteered a lot in our community. I volunteered in our son's class almost every Friday, and I really, all day long, got a whole new idea of what it's like to be entertaining 30 students all day long. I believe that as a Stand For member, volunteer, and also as a volunteer in this community, that an educated populace is the most important thing that we can have. Until you are in third grade, you are learning how to read. And after you are in third grade, if you do not know how to read, you will be left behind. They base the population for the prisons on the third grade reading scores. That's a tragedy. And that's where I'm coming from. We need more income for our city. Well, we need educated people with jobs, paying taxes, and being safe, making good choices because they've had their horizons broadened by the libraries and the books they could read. And with my husband and I, we went through all kinds of economic issues when we changed from logging to working on aircraft. We took a $25 an hour cut in wages. And during that time, I could continue to read and enjoy books because we had branch libraries. So please, I know you have a tough job, and thank you all for all the hours you devote. Please keep our libraries branches open. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ann Burgess, followed by Rebecca McNutt.
I've already had a turn to speak. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca McNutt then, and followed by Jeff Donica.
This one? I was sitting in back, I didn't see. I'm Rebecca McNutt, and I'm from the Bethel Ward. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment on the reduction of services. I feel that it's really unfortunate that you're pitting one service against another. It makes it difficult for all of us because we don't want to see another service suffer. Therefore, I think that it would be better to look at the administration, to look at efficiency, making things more efficient so that the funds will go further. I love the Bethel Library. I spend a lot of time there, and I think it's one of the greatest assets for us senior citizens. So we don't have much out there except for a skate park, and you're not going to see me skating in the skate park. Anyway, thank you very much for the opportunity to comment, because there are a lot of us here who feel very strongly about this library.
Thank you. Jeff Donica, followed by Sandy Ludeman.
Am I close enough to the mic? Hello, my name is Jeff Donica. I speak before you today as an elected official of the Eugene Police Employees Association. I'm also a 27-year EPD employee and the department's senior detective. The flawed methodology by which senior command staff identified 4 detectives for budgetary elimination is beyond belief. As is all too often the case with politics, the choice was clearly done in an attempt to strong-arm or mislead the public into an ill-conceived ballot measure. Historically, the Police Association's executive board has declined to proactively engage in ongoing discussions with the city's elected officials. Henceforth, that will change. We will seek out active dialogue with all city leaders. As is the case in most cities, the detectives I represent are the department's most senior, experienced, and highly trained investigative personnel. They investigate missing persons, runaways, rape, robbery, burglary, homicide, identity theft, drug trafficking, gangs, organized crime. The loss of 4 detectives means some of these crimes will not be investigated. I'm not going to suggest that murderers and rapists will run free in Eugene, but you shouldn't have to be the victim of a violent felony to have a detective assigned to your case. To further assist in your decision of whether to cut these detective positions, I urge you to review the consistent reviews by 3 independent paid staffing studies conducted at EPD over the last 13 years. The most recent study, titled Magellan, concluded, and I quote, "Oregon has the lowest number of police officers per capita in the United States, and Eugene has fewer than most parts of Oregon. The existing level of police service provided to the citizens of Eugene is very low due to significant understaffing." The report added harsh criticism by stating this level of police service should be completely unsatisfactory to the citizens of Eugene. As you go through your decision process, ask yourselves, what level of police service do you expect for yourself and your families? If the aforementioned crimes and investigations are part of your expectation, you have only one option left for the funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy Ludman, followed by Larry Deckman.
I'm Sandy Ludeman from Ward 5. I'm here as a representative of the Friends of the Eugene Public Library. Recently, I've been spending a lot of time talking to the patrons of the library branches, especially the Sheldon branch. My own takeaway from that experience is that our libraries have become one of the few places where we can see a diverse age, socioeconomic, political, and ethnic population gather together to educate themselves in a variety of ways. As an example of that interaction among all of those kinds of labels, I talked to one man who looks probably my age, and he expressed concern about the closing of the Sheldon branch, not for himself, but for the middle school kids who he saw there. And as he expressed it, did not have a quiet place at home, so needed this library to walk to for his study time. Well, you have to deal with numbers. Those numbers don't express the ripple effect of a library services. How a story time might be the only time a child hears a story read aloud, or how access to a computer might mean creating a business plan, as one Latino member of the Sheldon Library told me, or how having a warm, quiet place to work or study might turn a poor student into a better one. And as an unexpected byproduct, the chance for a diverse group of people to see and talk to one another about common interests and issues. Those effects can't be counted, but they can be felt throughout a community. If we want to rely on countable measures, we know that when these library hours were reduced, their circulation was reduced by 20%, but there was no corresponding increase in the downtown library's circulation. People will not just go downtown. Many people told me they would not or could not go downtown. Thank you for your work on this. I know it's hard.
Thank you. Larry Deckman, followed by Linda Asu.
My name is Larry Deckman, and I'm a board member of the Eugene Public Library Foundation. No organism chooses to reduce the amount of oxygen to its brain, and no healthy community chooses to close its libraries. In either case, the result is a reduction of consciousness and a dimming of the light. For the city of Eugene, closing our branch libraries will make our community less able to compete, less able to flourish, and decrease opportunity citywide. We will become significantly less than we currently are. Speaking for myself and not the Public Library Foundation, I realize there are serious budget concerns, but the answer is staring us all in the face. A bond measure as soon as possible, where the citizens of Eugene can show their support for this great community. 4J did it, Lane County did it, and had we had a bond measure in the last election, Eugene would have done it. The problem was the flawed city fee proposal, whose failings you've heard about from others besides me. Give the community a chance to show its support before you take a drastic measure like reducing the oxygen to our city's brain, which is our public library. In sum, this is a season of growing light. Please don't act to increase the darkness by shutting down our branch libraries. Thank you.
Thank you. Linda, and I can't really read the last name, so maybe you can help me. And then after that is Andrew Fisher.
My name is Linda Ague.
Thank you.
I live in Ward 4. Thank you for allowing us to share our concerns about the city budget. I'm here to speak in support of library services. A few weeks ago, as a friend of the library, I sat outside the Sheldon branch to give people information about the possible library cuts. We had 50 flyers that we hoped we would hand out in a 2-hour period. After 20 minutes, our 50 were gone, and we were well into the next 100. By the end of the 2 hours, we had handed out almost 300 flyers. That many families and individuals had gone through the library doors. We heard a mom new to the area emerging from a child's reading time, so excited at having met new friends for her and her child. We talked to many members of the retired communities in the area who are dependent on the library for tax information, for computer help, as well as books and media. Students from local schools, most of whom have no librarians, were anxious to get at the library print and digital resources. People often listened to us simply because they were waiting for someone to leave the library. It was too crowded to get in. We should be expanding the library, not talking about cutting it. It is clear that for many people, the library is not about keeping books on shelves. It is a community center. It is a community resource. And most of the people we talk to consider the Sheldon branch their primary library. Many would not be able to get downtown. I know this process has become one of difficult choices. I want to make sure that the library, which goes quietly about the business of providing thousands of people every day with something they have come to rely on, is properly weighted on the balance sheet. I'm afraid that if the branches are closed, we will lose them for good. The owners of the retail space are not likely to leave it empty while we find a way to fund them again. Closing the branches would be a permanent loss of one of the central services in Eugene's quality of life, and it would be a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. Andrew Fisher, followed by Cindy Clark.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Fisher. I do love libraries. My grandma took me to the library when I was young, and I know it influenced who I am. I am here, however, representing the Friendly Area Neighbors as the chairperson, and I want to share a message that our board recently voted unanimously asking the Budget Committee to retain the funding for neighborhood services and, most importantly, our publications. I've volunteered in our neighborhood association since 2007, and I edit our neighborhood newsletter, and it's the primary means by which we communicate with the 7,000 people in our neighborhood. And there are an awful lot of important projects going on in our neighborhood, from South Willamette to the Civic RFP, and also some wonderful examples of designating our park as pesticide-free. And without these publication funds, I don't know how we would support these efforts. I would also point out that our newsletter also includes a lot of official communications or updates from the city about city projects such as South Willamette. And if people don't get a newspaper or have internet, then I'm not sure how they would ever learn about how to get involved. Our neighborhood is very fortunate to have a high level of volunteer activity, and as this newsletter is created by volunteers, I believe it delivers a lot of bang for the buck when it comes to promoting community and trying to foster that sense of community. I recognize that we're faced with some difficult financial constraints, but I'm hopeful that the Budget Committee might determine that retaining these funds for neighborhood services is an investment in our neighborhoods, and that will hopefully help see us through these fiscally challenging times. Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Clark, followed by Bob Cassidy.
Hello, my name is Cindy Clark, and I reside in Councilor Clark's ward. And while I am a City of Eugene employee, I'm here today as a community member and as president of Local 1724, which represents approximately 600 city employees, all who provide valuable services to our community, including our library. My question tonight is, whose interests are being served with these scenarios? We have a $3 million budget gap and $4.9 million allocated to savings. Now, before anyone gets all frothy or high-centered on thoughts of one-time funds, please ask yourself, if these funds appear year after year, every year, are they one-time funds? The city does a great job of underspending the budget each year, and with rare exception, receives additional unanticipated revenue not reflected in the budget. I'd also like to refer to the comprehensive annual financial report that was recently released. It's for fiscal year 13, specifically fund balances located on page 47. I hope you'll take a moment and look that up. When all restricted or reserved funds are removed from that list, here's what remains. $3.9 million reserved for next year's funding. So, woo! Gap resolved. $4.9 reserved for revenue shortfall or savings that I've already addressed. $1.5 million other reserves, and $2.9 million in unassigned funding. Again, budget resolved. We have a $3 million budget gap to fill, yet we've left more than $13 million on the table. Whose interests are being served with that? Construction on the $15 million City Hall that begins in about 3 months, yet only has $10 million identified to pay for it. Again, whose interests are being served with allocating resources for a building that is indeed largely ceremonial and benefits a small population? Will this be built at the expense of the larger community? If you have the funds to cover these services, why wouldn't you? This is your decision, and I get that, but please make sure that it reflects our community's interests.
Thank you. Bob Cassidy, and then Adam Villalobos.
Bob Cassidy, you have been told that you have 6 choices of where to cut in order to balance the budget. This is wrong. This is wrong. You have 7 choices. You could choose to balance the budget with reserves, sometimes called one-time money. Believe me, now is the one time. You do not need to cut services. When you do that, what you are cutting is jobs of employers. I believe the figure is about 30 people you're talking about. If you cut these jobs, you are aggravating the bad economy of the city. Don't say cut service. That is a sugarcoating a real statement. You are cutting people's jobs. You are causing more people to go on food stamps and seek other aid. Now is the one time that these funds should be used. Now is the time to figure out a way to replace those funds if you need them, and you do. Don't listen to those who say you have 6 choices of where to cut. Don't cut any of them. You can't cut your way to prosperity. You cause poverty by these cuts, and you cause a lot of unhappiness for everybody. I would be happy to help you. There must be 24 ways to figure out ways to raise money for the city. I'd be happy to offer my services for that.
Thank you. Adam Villalobos, followed by Brent Barker. Is Adam here? Adam? We'll move on to Brent Barker. It's Brent. Oh, great, thank you. And after that will be Stephanie Midkiff.
I'm Brent Barker. I wanted to stand when Margaret asked the boarders for the Bethel Branch Library to stand. I'm not able to do that anymore. I was born and raised in Eugene and always enjoyed the quality of life I've been able to enjoy here. I remember when the new library finally came into existence. I voted for it several times, and how excited I was when the Bethel Branch Library was announced. Over the last few years, my physical condition has continued to deteriorate. I'm no longer able to drive a car. I do use a bus. I will come down to the library sometimes, but it's very nice just to be able to get in my wheelchair, drive myself up to the branch library, spend an hour or two reading there in the magazines. We were concerned where the Bethel Library hours were cut. We ask you, please don't kill the library and let us save our branch library. Thank you. And that's the first time I've ever said anything under a minute, too.
Thank you. Stephanie Midkiff, followed by Connie Regali.
Hello, I'm Stephanie Midkiff, and I'm Secretary of the Laurel Hill Valley Neighborhood Association. I've been Secretary for about 10 years, and I'm here to talk about neighborhood services and asking you not to cut or reduce funding for neighborhood services. A couple of things I want to address are the communications aspect, where we get funded to help us produce our newsletter, and we have a newsletter that comes out quarterly, usually 4 to 8 pages, and in this manner we're able to contact the people who live in our neighborhood association and let them know about upcoming meetings and issues of interest to them, and also lost animals in the neighborhood, thefts and vandalism in the neighborhood. So we're able to do that with our newsletter, and granted, the newsletter is kind of a slow way of doing things because it only comes out quarterly, but in the last couple of years, before I get to that part, let me say that we decided a few years ago to create a listserv for our neighborhood association. And I did that on my personal email account, which the spam blocker prevented me from sending out a message to the entire neighborhood at one time, so I'd have to break it up into different subgroups of neighbors. And a couple of years ago, Neighborhood Services funded iContact, which is an email messaging service where you can send out kind of broadcast messages to your neighborhood association. And we started with about 200 people when it was in my email account, and now we're up to about 500 people, because the big thing that's going on in our neighborhood now is we're being inundated with development issues and proposals to development in our area. So we use iContact all the time to let our neighbors know about issues on the development front, and this is better than just sending people to our website to let them know what's going on, and people can have an input in the livability of our neighborhoods by this iContact email. Thank you.
Thank you. Connie Regali, followed by Cynthia Kokis.
Connie Regali, Ward 5. I'm here this evening to speak for the many that would like to be here, but for some reason can't. I'm a Sheldon Branch supporter, and my time spent handing out flyers made me aware of 3 target groups that I would like to talk about tonight. Seniors. In addition to 2 large retirement sites, the Sheldon area has many 50 and over apartment complexes. Many from these buildings use the branch, some even coming in motorized wheelchairs. Yes, the 2 retirement buildings have libraries, but according to the residents, the branch provides much more. And obviously, this is a population that have a very difficult time getting downtown. Low-income citizens. As many of you connected to the city know, the Sheldon area does have several low-income settings. These citizens often do not have cars, many have children, and so using the branch is something that they do on a very regular basis, and again, a population that might find getting downtown very difficult. Also, students. With Sheldon High and many surrounding grade schools, many of which have a very reduced library service, again, a group of people that use the branch libraries. So I like to think about, when you think of budgets, I like to think of bang for the buck. Well, I can't think of a bigger bang than keeping branches open. Thank you.
Thank you. I only have 3 more slips of people signed up. I don't know if anybody else has signed up, but looks like we'll have a few more extra minutes. So I have Cynthia Kokis, followed by Madeline Smith.
Hi, I'm Cynthia Kokis. I think it's important to think in the larger scale of things. What kind of a community are we? Are we a community of yo-yos, you're on your own, or are you part of a community of wits, we're in this together? I find suggestions being given to me are yo-yo ones, I'm on my own. I don't think they're good. Staff salaries are supposedly geared to attract the best skilled people. Therefore, I expect them to create methods to increase the income, fair methods, good methods, not flat taxes, not increasing payment for community services. I do not agree with the League of Women Voters that we could raise by 5% recreational services. I have too many low-income friends and had them in my family, and these scholarships do not exist. Let me assure you, and if you want to hear about it more, I will tell you about the Northwest Youth Corps, the Y, here or there, everywhere, how easy it is to go to those services when you're poor. We don't want to have our parks and recreation fees go up. We don't want to get money from fees, charges people to go to services. We're a community, and these services belong to us. When we raised the price in Mount Pisgah, the county did that. It made no money at all, and it reduced the people who went. So let's not take money for the city hall from the fund. Let's find the money. Let's be wits. We're in this together.
Thank you. So I have Madeline Smith, followed by Allie Valkyrie.
My name is Madeline Smith, and I live at 594 West 11th Avenue. And I was at the library today, and I discovered that if I went to the fourth floor, I could actually see the finance reports, and I could find, if I had more time, where we have the funds that are reserved for next year and all that kind of thing. Now, I'm not at the lowest rung of citizens, so I want to speak for the lowest rung, because San Francisco is now using old Muni buses to make, they decommissioned Uni buses donated by the city into comfortable bathrooms. Each bus is retrofitted with 2 showers, toilets, and private changing areas, enhanced with curving skylight, LED cover lights, color, and music. With volunteers at the wheel, the buses will make stops at homeless shelters and service organizations worldwide. And I believe that we have to take care of our homeless in such a way that they have their dignity intact. And if they have showers and can be clean, they're in a better position to go for jobs and to feel that they are citizens. So I have enough flyers for you to read about this program in San Francisco, and I think we have the money for this here, because we could have our Muni buses donated to us, and we'd find the volunteers who would take care of the wheel. So it's just the cost of retrofitting the buses and then finding the gas money. I think the rest would be taken care of.
Thank you. Allie Valkyrie. Valkyrie, excuse me. Yeah, if other people want to sign up and say something, we have some more time, so we could, up to a handful of more people could sign up in the back to speak.
Hi there, Allie Valkyrie. I'm sorry to sound snarky, but I need to start by pointing out that the $846,000 worth of yearly property taxes that the City Council could have gotten out of Capstone would have funded both branch libraries and the discretionary funding for the Human Services Commission. Unfortunately, the City Council doesn't believe in negotiation, but again, had to be said. I'm actually here to talk about the golf course, and specifically the city's assertion that it would only provide a long-term savings of $200,000. That really makes absolutely no sense to me. I'd like to go through the numbers quickly. We've owned that golf course since 1967, paid $350,000 for it at the time. In today's dollars, that's $2.5 million. Might have been a better investment put anywhere, but the point being, I've heard from sources that the property is probably actually worth up to $5 million today. As to that $200,000 number, I spent good afternoon going through 30 years worth of the Register Guard, and I've found that no, actually, that place has been a money hole pretty much the entire time. The reason we keep switching managers every 5 years is because no one can turn a profit. The line in the city budget about it producing revenue through concession sales is hilarious. And we've wasted $200,000 on it in the past 5 years alone. So, you know, to put into personal experience, when I first got my license, I bought a cool little car, and it was cool. But you know what? It was a money pit. And one day I woke up and I was broke. And even though selling the car itself did not fill my money hole, when I looked at the amount of money I put into that car over the past couple of years, it made me realize, gee, this is a sound economic decision to get rid of this and put the money somewhere more sensible. Please, let's stop subsidizing a golf course and let's fund some priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Looks like we have a couple more people signed up. Nancy Nathanson, followed by Robin Hanson.
Allie and I agree today. This is good.
Hello. I'm Nancy Nathanson. I'm a state representative representing North Eugene and parts of downtown. I have worked mightily on behalf of the city in past years. For example, to build new fire stations and remodel old fire stations, open a closed fire station, add firefighters to make sure that we had citywide coverage. I've worked for public safety. I've worked to get parks built and add parks, both structures, play equipment, and open space in neighborhoods that previously had no parks. I'm here tonight to talk to you about libraries. Some of you know that I have a long history, nearly 4 decades in libraries. Libraries were my profession. They're also a passion of mine. They are a place that you've heard from others of your constituents tonight that are important to kids, to seniors. They're important for literacy. They're important for community gathering places. They provide food for the mind, which is every bit as important as food for the body. And with as much as we care about sustainability, living a good life, a well-rounded life, I think libraries have to be part of that. I live in the neighborhood generally defined in North Eugene that's covered by the Sheldon Branch Library. I have visited the Bethel Branch, but I'm at the Sheldon Branch Library often. Maybe I've seen some of you there. I also go to the downtown library pretty often. I hope that you find a way to sustain services in the best way you can. I won't be here to micromanage your decisions to try to keep human services whole, public safety, and libraries, but I certainly do want to speak up for the people in the Sheldon and the Bethel areas who depend on that, whether it's kids or seniors or families. It's every bit as important to their lives as transportation, public safety, and parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Robin Hanson.
Hi, I'm Robin Hanson. I teach first grade at Prairie Mountain School, and I'm here on behalf of the Eugene Education Association. On behalf of all the Eugene teachers in both Bethel School District and the 4J School District, the EEA urges you to support retaining the Bethel and Sheldon Branch libraries. As educators and teachers, we understand the importance of vibrant and accessible libraries to our students and our families. Over the years, we have seen a sharp drop in library services in our respective school districts. The 4J district has only 2 full-time librarians, and there are none left in the Bethel School District. The branch libraries serve the needs of those who can't easily access the downtown library, including low-income and elderly patrons. We believe that many of these people could not otherwise access library services. We know that as Budget Committee members, you face very many difficult choices, but we believe that access to the branch libraries represents a tremendous investment in the students we serve and help fill a gap in services that schools no longer provide. It's an investment that can't simply be measured in dollars and cents. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We have Danella Elizabeth Alston.
Hello, my name is Donnelly Elizabeth Alston. I live in the Bethel neighborhood. I'm also the co-chair of the Bethel Neighborhood Association. That's the active Bethel citizens. I did not have anything prepared tonight, but since I was here, and I've had the opportunity to hear everything that our community members were saying, I just wanted to pop in my 2 cents. What we value, we protect. We all value our kids. We all value our communities. We all value how important an educated electorate is. Keeping the branch libraries open is obviously very important for all of the reasons that we've heard. And I don't mean to imply that you do not value the branch libraries and all that they do for our kids and our seniors and folks that just don't get downtown. But perhaps what's needed is just a retweaking of our thought process. The money's got to be there somewhere. You know, I mean, I think we've all had those moments when we need to get downtown for something. We don't have any gas money. We're going through pants pockets, coat pockets, whatever, and you find the money you need to go downtown. Or we tell our kids, no, I don't have any money to give you for this or that thing. Okay, well, here's a little bit for something else. So the money's got to be there someplace, and I urge you, tweak your thought process a little bit and see if there isn't some way we can keep this valuable resource in our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that's all we have signed up to speak tonight. I want to make sure and thank everybody for coming out and telling us your thoughts. We appreciate it. We are not going to be deliberating tonight or making any decisions. There is another public hearing next Tuesday, the 28th, a week from tonight. And that hearing will be not in this room. It will be held at the downtown Eugene Public Library in the Bascom-Tysken room. That hearing also starts at 5:30. So we'll continue taking testimony in a week, and then our deliberations and decision-making will come after that. Well, we actually deliberate that night after the hearing or another meeting after that. So we won't deliberate that night either, but it will be another public hearing. So with that, I don't know that there's any other business that we need to do tonight. We're adjourned.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.